When Whitney Houston walked into that Nashville recording studio in 1992, she thought she was just laying down vocals for I Will Always Love You. But what happened next? A secret duet with Dolly Parton that the world was never meant to hear would change both women's lives forever. If this incredible story of friendship, music, and hidden treasure moves you, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. It was October 15th, 1992, and Whitney was 3 months into recording the Bodyguard soundtrack. The pressure was crushing. Kevin Costner had personally chosen her for the film, but whispers around Hollywood questioned whether the pop princess could handle acting alongside a major movie star. I Will Always Love You was supposed to be Whitney's proof that she belonged in both worlds, music and movies. But as she stood in Sound Emporium Studios in Nashville, staring at the sheet music for Dolly Parton's 1973 masterpiece, she felt smaller than she had in years. "Miss Houston," the engineer's voice crackled through the studio speakers. "We're ready for another take." Whitney closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and began to sing. Her voice soared through the opening lines, but something felt incomplete. She was performing the song beautifully, but she wasn't connecting with it emotionally. That's when she heard the door open behind her. "Well, sugar, that voice is even more beautiful in person." Whitney spun around to see Dolly Parton herself, wearing a bright pink outfit and that signature smile, walking into the studio like she owned the place, which in many ways she did. This was her song, her creation, her baby. "Miss Parton," Whitney's voice cracked slightly. "I had no idea you were—" "Oh, honey, call me Dolly. And I just had to come hear what you were doing with my little song." Dolly's eyes twinkled with warmth. "Can I tell you a secret? I've been listening from the hallway for the past 20 minutes, and you're giving me chills." But here's what nobody in that studio expected to happen next. Whitney's eyes filled with tears. "Miss Dolly, I don't know if I'm doing it right. This song means so much to so many people. Your version is perfect, and I'm afraid I'm going to ruin it." Dolly walked over and put her small hand on Whitney's arm. "Darling, let me tell you something. I wrote this song about letting someone go because you love them. But when I hear you sing it, I hear something different. I hear a woman claiming her power." "Really?" Whitney whispered. "Really? Now how about we sing it together? Just once. For us." What happened in the next 15 minutes would become one of music's greatest secrets. Dolly positioned herself at the second microphone, and the two women began to sing I Will Always Love You as a duet. Whitney's powerful, soaring vocals blended with Dolly's tender, country-tinged delivery in a way that seemed impossible. Gospel met country, power met vulnerability. Two generations of female excellence merged into something entirely new. As they sang, something magical happened. Whitney's eyes closed, and for the first time in months, she wasn't performing. She was just singing. Dolly watched her with tears streaming down her face, realizing she was witnessing the birth of something sacred. When Whitney hit those legendary high notes, Dolly's harmony lifted her even higher, creating a sound that neither woman knew was possible. The engineer later said it was the most beautiful thing he'd ever recorded. His hands were actually shaking as he adjusted the levels, afraid to breathe too loudly and interrupt what he knew was musical history being made. Whitney's voice on the verses, building to those legendary high notes, while Dolly harmonized underneath, adding layers of emotion that neither woman could achieve alone. When they finished, the studio was silent for a long moment. "My lord," Dolly whispered. "Whitney, that was magic." Whitney was crying openly now. "Dolly, this feels like the song was meant to be sung this way, like it was waiting for both of us." "Maybe it was, honey, maybe it was." But that's when the real world crashed into their magical moment. The studio door burst open, and in walked Clive Davis, Whitney's mentor and record label president, along with several Bodyguard soundtrack executives. "Whitney, we need to discuss—" Clive stopped mid-sentence when he saw Dolly. "Oh, Ms. Parton, I didn't realize you were here." "Just came to hear this angel sing my song," Dolly said sweetly. But Whitney noticed a shift in the room's energy. One of the executives stepped forward. "We actually need Whitney to do a few more solo takes. The movie needs a Whitney Houston moment, not a collaboration." Whitney felt her heart sink. "But we just recorded something really special. I'm sure it was lovely, another executive interrupted. But the Bodyguard soundtrack needs to establish Whitney as a solo force. A duet would confuse the market positioning. Dolly's smile never wavered, but her eyes flashed with something Whitney had never seen before. Gentlemen, that recording we just made wasn't just lovely. It was lightning in a bottle. But the decision was already made. The duet would stay in the vault. Whitney's solo version would be the one the world heard. After the executives left, Dolly and Whitney sat alone in the studio. The silence felt heavy, charged with disappointment and unfinished business. Whitney stared at the microphones where they'd just created magic together. I can't believe they just dismissed it like that. Like what we made didn't matter. Her voice was barely a whisper, but Dolly heard the pain underneath. I'm so sorry, Whitney said, her voice barely audible. I should have fought harder. I should have told them how special that recording was. Sugar, don't you apologize for other people's fear. Dolly's voice was firm, but her eyes were soft with understanding. They're scared because what we just did doesn't fit in their neat little boxes. Country star, pop star, black artist, white artist, they can't imagine that music is just music. That conversation changed Whitney forever, but it also planted a seed in Dolly's heart that would grow into something extraordinary. 2 weeks later, Dolly called Whitney at her home in New Jersey. Whitney, I've been thinking about what happened in that studio, about fear and boxes and who gets to decide what music sounds like. Me too, Whitney admitted. What if we did something about it? That phone call led to the creation of the Harmony Bridge Foundation, though the world wouldn't know about it for years. Dolly used her own money to start a nonprofit dedicated to breaking down genre barriers in music, specifically supporting collaborations between artists from different backgrounds. The foundation's first grant went to a young Native American country singer who wanted to record with a gospel choir from Detroit. The second went to a classical violinist who dreamed of playing with a hip-hop producer. But Dolly and Whitney's work together went deeper than just funding projects. They became secret mentors to each other, talking on the phone every few weeks about the pressures of being women in the music industry. Some days I feel like I have to be perfect all the time, Whitney confided during one late-night call in 1994. Like if I mess up, I'm not just disappointing myself, I'm disappointing every black woman who sees herself in me. Honey, Dolly replied, perfection is the enemy of authenticity. Your fans don't love you because you're perfect. They love you because when you sing, they feel something real. These conversations sustained Whitney through some of her most challenging years. When the media criticized her for acting white, Dolly reminded her that music has no color. When Whitney struggled with the pressure of being the voice, Dolly helped her remember that her gift was meant to be shared, not hoarded. Meanwhile, the Harmony Bridge Foundation quietly grew. By 2000, it had supported over 200 cross-genre collaborations. Country artists worked with R&B singers. Gospel choirs recorded with rock bands. Hip-hop producers collaborated with bluegrass musicians. Every time we fund a project that breaks down barriers, Dolly told her foundation board, I think about that day in the studio with Whitney. I think about what the world missed because people were too afraid to let magic happen. But the secret duet remained locked away, known only to those who were there that day. In 2005, when Whitney's career was struggling and the media was focused on her personal problems, Dolly called with an offer. Sugar, what if we released our duet now? Show the world what collaboration looks like? Whitney was quiet for a long time. Dolly, I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of attention. People might think I'm trying to use your success to revive my career. Or, Dolly countered, they might hear two women supporting each other and remember what music is really about. But Whitney wasn't ready, and Dolly respected her decision. The years that followed were difficult for Whitney. Her marriage to Bobby Brown became increasingly turbulent. Her voice, once flawless, began showing signs of strain. The media coverage grew harsher. Through it all, Dolly remained a steady presence. She never judged, never offered unsolicited advice. She just listened and reminded Whitney of who she really was beneath all the headlines. Remember that girl who walked into the studio that day, Dolly would say? That girl who wanted to honor my song while making it her own? That girl is still there, Whitney. Don't let the world convince you otherwise. February 11th, 2012. The call that broke Dolly's heart. Whitney was gone. At Whitney's funeral, Dolly sat in the back of the New Hope Baptist Church in Newark, tears streaming down her face as she listened to the tributes. When Alicia Keys sang "Send Me an Angel," Dolly thought about their secret recording session 20 years earlier. After the service, Whitney's mother, Sissy, approached Dolly. "Thank you for coming," Sissy said. "Whitney always spoke about you with such love and respect. She said you were the only person in the industry who never wanted anything from her except her friendship." "She was like a daughter to me," Dolly replied, her voice breaking. "I keep thinking about that day in the studio, how pure her voice was, how happy she looked when we sang together." "She kept a recording," Sissy whispered, glancing around to make sure no one else could hear, "from when you two sang together. She played it sometimes when she was feeling lost. She'd sit in her room and listen to your voices together, and for a few minutes, she'd smile like that young girl again." Those words hit Dolly like a physical blow. The idea that Whitney had found comfort in their secret recording, that it had been a source of healing during her darkest moments, changed everything. That's when Dolly made a decision that would honor Whitney's memory in the most beautiful way possible. In 2013, 1 year after Whitney's death, Dolly contacted Whitney's estate about releasing the duet recording, but not for profit. All proceeds would go to the Harmony Bridge Foundation, now renamed the Whitney Houston Dolly Parton Harmony Bridge Foundation. "Whitney always believed music could heal the world," Dolly announced at a small press conference. "This recording represents everything she stood for, breaking down barriers, building bridges, and proving that love is stronger than fear." The duet was finally released on what would have been Whitney's 50th birthday, August 9th, 2013. The response was overwhelming. Music critics called it transcendent and a gift from heaven. Fans around the world wept, listening to Whitney and Dolly's voices intertwined, country and gospel creating something entirely new and yet timelessly familiar. But more importantly, the foundation's work exploded. The publicity from the duet brought in millions in donations, allowing them to expand their cross-genre collaboration programs worldwide. Today, the Whitney Houston Dolly Parton Harmony Bridge Foundation operates in 15 countries and has supported over 3,000 musical collaborations that break down genre, racial, and cultural barriers. Every time a young black country singer gets her first recording contract, every time a white gospel singer finds acceptance in a black church, every time music brings people together instead of driving them apart. That's Whitney's legacy, Dolly says from her office, where a photo of her and Whitney in the studio that day holds a place of honor. The Foundation's most successful program pairs young artists from different genres as mentorship partners. A hip-hop artist might work with a classical composer. A country singer might collaborate with a jazz musician. The results have been extraordinary, not just musically, but culturally. "Music was always meant to be a universal language," explains Dr. Sarah Chen, the Foundation's current director. "But the music industry spent decades teaching us that genres are walls instead of doorways. Whitney and Dolly's partnership shows us what happens when we remember that walls are meant to be broken down." In 2019, the Foundation opened the Whitney Houston Center for Musical Unity in Nashville, just a few miles from where that secret recording session took place 27 years earlier. Dolly was there for the ribbon cutting, along with hundreds of artists whose careers had been supported by the Foundation over the years. The center features recording studios designed specifically for cross-genre collaboration, rehearsal spaces for artists from different backgrounds to work together, and educational programs that teach young musicians to see genre as starting point, not limitation. "Whitney taught me that the most powerful thing we can do is lift each other up," Dolly said at the ceremony. "That day in the studio, she was worried about honoring my song, but what she really did was honor the spirit of music itself. The idea that beautiful things happen when we're brave enough to blend our voices together." Today, when young artists visit the center, they hear the story of Whitney and Dolly's secret duet. They learn about two women who found common ground in their differences, who supported each other across racial and genre lines, and who proved that the most beautiful music happens when we stop worrying about categories and start focusing on connection. The original recording studio where Whitney and Dolly sang together has been preserved exactly as it was that day. Visitors can see the two microphones still positioned side by side and listen to the story of 15 minutes that changed everything. People ask me if I wish we'd released the duet earlier, Dolly reflects. But I think it happened exactly when it was supposed to. Whitney was gone, but her message about unity and collaboration was more important than ever. Sometimes the most powerful gifts come when we need them most. The Whitney Houston Dolly Parton duet of I Will Always Love You continues to inspire new generations of artists to break down barriers and build bridges through music. It's become an anthem for collaboration, a reminder that the most beautiful art happens when different voices join together in harmony. But perhaps the most powerful part of this story isn't the recording itself, it's what it represents. Two women from different worlds, different genres, different backgrounds finding common ground in their shared love of music and their commitment to lifting each other up. Whitney Houston's solo version of I Will Always Love You became one of the best-selling singles of all time. But the duet with Dolly Parton became something even more valuable. Proof that the barriers between us are never as strong as the connections we can build when we choose love over fear, collaboration over competition, and unity over division. In a world that often feels divided, Whitney and Dolly's secret recording session reminds us that the most beautiful moments happen when we stop focusing on what makes us different and start celebrating what makes us human. The secret duet that was hidden for 20 years became the foundation for a movement that continues to grow stronger every day. And somewhere, perhaps, Whitney is smiling, knowing that her voice, both literally and figuratively, is still bringing people together, still breaking down walls, still proving that music really can heal the world.